David, as we were talking earlier in the week, I was part of a panel discussion for the New York City chapter of ALA, their annual symposium. And we were talking about the lessons we've learned during the remote working environment over the past year and where are we going from here. And a lot of the conversation and the questions really pointed towards addressing culture issues and organizational culture. And for a lot of people, it just seems like an overwhelming and daunting topic. I'd love your insights on how can we make it more digestible, more positioned in a way where we can get our arms around it.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, it's understandable to be somewhat intimidated when you think about this concept of organizational culture, right? Especially if you are in a position that doesn't have a lot of autonomy or broad autonomy across an organization. Like, where do you start? And I
Right.
hear that a lot from folks I talk to about culture is like, oh boy, we don't have the capacity to take that on right now. So totally get it. But when I hear that, I do push back a little bit and say, well, why is it all or nothing? Why can't sort of break down the required work into smaller, more digestible chunks? So it doesn't seem, so the optics aren't as intimidating because you're not taking on the full spectrum of work at one time. And you can gain some confidence as you hit milestones, and you can use that energy and that momentum to fuel future components of the culture work as well.
So what can they do to take concrete steps? How would, if they got a piece of paper down or they got their whiteboard clean, how would they start to sketch out and approach the culture work?
Sure. So in our roadmap, our culture roadmap, the first kind of phase or the first sort of collection of work really is focused on that sort of aspirational discovery space, as I mentioned before. So it's really important that you don't rush through that. And the questions you might want to ask yourself is like, what behaviors and norms do we need to have frequently visible across our organization that is going to help us execute our strategy? So it's really a long-term perspective in terms of how do we want people to treat each other and to engage in the work that is going to facilitate in the most efficient way the objectives that we've committed to in terms of our strategy. So that's the first thing I would do. And the second thing you would do in that early stage is, okay, great. So what tool do we want to use to evaluate our progress against this journey that we've identified? And there's a lot of tools out in the market, but it's important to select that tool in advance so that you're not sort of scrambling and trying to retrofit what you're doing to fit some tools on the market, right? So really be clear about the best tool to use. It could be an engagement survey, it could be a culture survey. What is it, right? So and land on that. And the third thing, which can be done relatively quickly, is assemble a team to help you out, right? So a culture team, you can pull. This is where you can get kind of creative in terms of how you engage and frame the culture work. Is get a sort of a culture committee of people who are going to be great ambassadors to the work and are going to keep that level of energy and motivation up throughout the journey as well. And it really should be a nice cross sample of senior management with frontline workers, so you get a variety of, it's sort of a 360 perspective in terms of the culture work. And those really can
That's
be done. I mean, it's not a lot of work, but that can be done pretty quickly. I mean, if you have somebody who's sort of spearheading that work internally, you can get that, one calendar month, you can have that whole thing completed, essentially.
great. Great. Well, I think those are great tips and strategies to get the process started. And of course, you and the rest of the Loeb leadership team are here as a resource. If anybody has any questions or just wants to brainstorm with you, certainly feel free to reach out to David Robert or myself at our emails and phone number below. Thank you so much, David.
You bet. Take care.